I have to admit I used to love driving at night. There's something peaceful about the empty roads and the quiet. But that all changed after one night a few months ago. This happened on a Friday, around 2 a.m. I was heading back home after visiting my parents in the next state over. It's about a 5-hour drive, mostly on highways. I had just gotten off the interstate and was on a desolate stretch of road that cuts through some rural areas. It's a route I've taken 100 times before, but that night felt different. There was an odd stillness in the air, and the only light came from my headlights cutting through the darkness. About an hour into my drive, I noticed a car in my rearview mirror. At first, I didn't think much of it. It's not uncommon to see a few late-night travelers on this road. But after a while, I realized the car was matching my speed exactly, keeping a constant distance. It seemed odd, but I tried to brush it off. Maybe they were just on the same route. After a few miles, I decided to test my theory. I sped up a bit, and sure enough, the car sped up too. I slowed down, and they did the same. A chill ran down my spine, and I started to get that uneasy feeling in my gut. I glanced at the gas gauge and realized I was running low. I had planned to stop at a gas station about 10 miles ahead, so I decided to keep going and hope they would pass me or turn off somewhere. As I approached the gas station, relief washed over me when I saw the bright lights. I pulled in and parked by one of the pumps, hoping the car would just drive on by. But instead, it pulled into the lot and parked a few spaces away. My heart was pounding as I got out of the car and started fueling up. The driver of the other car didn't get out. They just sat there, their silhouette barely visible through the darkened windows. I finished pumping gas and hurried inside to pay. The clerk, a grizzled old man, gave me a nod as I entered. I tried to act normal as I paid, but my mind was racing. I asked the clerk if he had noticed the car that had followed me in, and he just shrugged, saying he hadn't seen anything unusual. I thanked him and left, hoping the other car had decided to move on. But when I stepped outside, the car was still there, and the driver was now standing beside it, watching me. He was a tall, gaunt figure, wearing a long coat and a hat that cast a shadow over his face. I couldn't see his eyes, but I could feel his gaze on me. I quickly got back into my car and locked the doors. As I started the engine, the man began walking towards me. I floored it out of the gas station and sped down the road. In my rearview mirror, I saw the man get back into his car and follow. Panic set in, and I knew I had to lose him. I took a sharp turn onto a smaller road that led through a dense forest, hoping the narrow, winding path would slow him down. For a while, it seemed like it worked. The road was bumpy and full of twists and turns. I kept glancing in the mirror, but I couldn't see his headlights anymore. I started to think I had lost him. My relief was short-lived, though. As I rounded a bend, I saw the headlights appear again, closer than before. I was in full panic mode now, and my only thought was to get away. I saw a sign for a rest stop a few miles ahead and decided to try and lose him there. The rest stop was one of those old, barely maintained ones with a few vending machines and a rundown restroom. I pulled in and parked on the far side behind some trees, hoping he wouldn't see me. I turned off the car and waited, holding my breath. A few minutes later, I saw his car slowly pass by on the main road. He didn't turn into the rest stop, and I finally allowed myself to breathe again. I waited for another 10 minutes to make sure he was gone before I got back on the road. The rest of the drive was nerve-wracking. Every set of headlights I saw in my mirror made my heart race, but none of them were him. I finally made it home just as dawn was breaking. I was exhausted and shaken, but relieved to be safe. The next day, I reported the incident to the police, giving them a description of the man and his car. They took down the information but didn't seem overly concerned. They told me there had been no other reports of similar incidents. I never saw that car again, but that night changed me. Now, I avoid late-night drives whenever possible. So, if you're ever driving alone at night and you get that feeling like someone's watching you, don't ignore it. Trust your instincts and stay safe. And remember, not every road leads you home.